How many times have you heard this? Think positive, smile. Life is beautiful. Sadness doesn't solve anything. You need to be strong. And how many times have you felt even worse after these phrases? As if there was something fundamentally broken inside you because you couldn't simply turn on the happiness button. I have a confession to make. For years, I believed this lie. I believed that emotionally healthy people were those who could keep a smile on their face no matter the circumstances. That true winners were those who transformed every adversity into an instant life lesson, who found the positive in absolutely everything. And then I came across a disturbing discovery. A seemingly innocent Disney Pixar film had decoded one of the biggest psychological problems in our society. And no, I'm not talking about representation or social issues. I'm talking about something much deeper and more dangerous. Today, I'll show you why Inside Out isn't just a cute kids movie about colorful emotions controlling an 11-year-old girl. It's a depth psychology textbook disguised as family entertainment. And the most disturbing message it reveals is this: our cultural obsession with being happy all the time is literally destroying our ability to form authentic relationships, process trauma, and develop real emotional resilience. But here's what's even more shocking. The character most people consider troubled in the film that blew, slow, and seemingly useless sadness is actually the most accurate representation of mental health Hollywood has ever created. And if you don't understand why, you're probably making the same psychological mistakes that nearly destroyed Riley's life. In this video, we'll decode the psychological symbols hidden behind that seemingly simple control room. I'll reveal why each color, each interaction, each conflict between emotions represents concepts from analytical psychology that most people take decades to grasp. And in the end, you'll understand why suppressing your sadness isn't just ineffective, it's the most dangerous strategy you can use to deal with life's challenges. Get ready, because after this video, you'll never hear someone say think positive the same way again. And when you understand what's really going on in Riley's mind, you will realize that maybe, just maybe, you've been in therapy with me for years without even realizing it. Let's begin by analyzing Riley in the first 10 minutes of the film. At 11 years old, she is what our society considers a perfect child. Her memories are all golden, bright, monochromatic. She is the daughter who never complains, the student who always has a positive response, the child who turns every potentially difficult moment into a fun adventure. She plays hockey with the boys, and when she falls, she gets up laughing. When her parents are stressed about money, she clowns round to cheer them up. When something doesn't go as planned, she immediately finds an even better alternative. Riley is essentially a positivity machine in kid form, and for 11 years it worked. Or at least, it seemed to work. But here's what Pixar is really showing us, and what most adults completely miss. Riley isn't living a psychologically healthy life. She's living an adaptive lie that only works as long as the world around her remains predictable and controllable. You know, that constant pressure you feel to always be okay, to say everything's great when someone asks how you are, even when you barely managed to get out of bed that morning, to post only happy photos on Instagram, carefully hiding any evidence that you're a complex human being with a wide range of emotions. You know how you feel guilty for being sad during times that should be happy. When you force a smile on your birthday because everyone expects you to be radiant, but inside you feel empty or overwhelmed. When you minimize your own pain because other people are going through worse. Riley is the perfect reflection of our toxic positivity culture. A society that treats any emotion other than joy as a flaw, as a weakness, as something that needs to be quickly meditated upon, or positive-minded until it disappears. And if you've ever felt fundamentally broken because you couldn't maintain that facade 24/7, if you've ever wondered why you can't be like those people on LinkedIn who turn every professional failure into an opportunity for growth, If you've ever thought there was something wrong with you because you feel anger when someone hurts you, or anxiety about the future, or melancholy when you remember the past, this film was made for you, because Riley is about to discover in the most psychologically brutal way possible that an identity built exclusively on joy is not a sign of mental health. It's an emotional time bomb waiting to explode the first moment life presents a situation that can't be resolved with a smile and a positive attitude, and the move to San Francisco. This isn't just a change of city. It's the first real stress test Riley's psychological system will face. And when that test arrives, we discover that 11 years of pure happiness have left her completely unprepared to deal with the fundamental reality of human existence. Life is inherently complex, often difficult and occasionally painful, and no amount of positive thinking will change the dot. Now let's dive into the actual psychological decoding. That colorful control room isn't just a cute metaphor for feelings. It's an accurate visual representation of concepts that Carl Jung, the founder of analytical psychology, spent decades developing, and that are typically taught only at advanced graduate levels in psychology. Joy, with its dominant energy, its control over core memories, and its natural leadership position, represents what Jung would call the dominant persona ego. The persona is the social mask we develop to be accepted by the world. It's the edited version of ourselves we present in job interviews, family gatherings, and first dates. Notice how Joy operates. She doesn't just want to control Riley's current behavior. She wants to retrospectively control all her memories. She literally rewrites Riley's personal history to maintain a coherent narrative of positivity. This isn't children's movie psychology. This is an accurate portrayal of how people with joy compulsion live their real lives. They don't just suppress negative emotions in the present. They constantly revisit their memories, trying to extract positive lessons from painful experiences, recontextualizing traumas as blessings in disguise, and systematically denying any experience that doesn't fit the narrative that they are lucky and blessed. And what about sadness? In Jungian terms, it represents the shadow function not in the sense of evil, but in the technical sense of aspects of the psyche that have been rejected by consciousness. Observe how it is treated by others. Pushed into corners, physically prevented from touching important memories, constantly criticized for ruining moments that could be happy. But here's the detail that reveals the writer's psychological genius. Sadness isn't trying to destroy anything. She's trying to process. When she touches a happy memory and turns it blue, she's not contaminating the joy, she's adding complexity, context, and emotional depth. The core memories that underpin Riley's personality aren't just important memories. They're what psychologists call core identity schemas, the fundamental narratives a person uses to understand who they are and how the world works. And here's the disturbing problem. All these memories are golden, monochromatic, controlled exclusively by joy. This means Riley's entire identity is built on a psychological foundation that completely denies the reality of the complex human experience. Riley literally doesn't know who she is when she's not happy. Her entire personality depends on maintaining an emotional state that is, by definition, temporary and situational. It's like building a house on foundations that only work when the weather is good, and when life inevitably presents situations that cannot be resolved with enthusiasm and optimism alone, when it must be loss, adaptation, change, and certainty. The entire system collapses because it was never designed to deal with reality. Joy's frantic mission to rid herself of sadness, this desperate attempt to maintain complete control over Riley's emotional landscape, will be exactly what triggers the most profound psychological crisis of her life up to that point. And this is a perfect metaphor for what happens to us when we spend years trying to suppress or fix our difficult emotions. We don't eliminate them, we just push them underground. where they accumulate and gain power until a stressful situation forces them to the surface all at once. Now we come to the theoretical core that sets this channel apart from other movie channels. What Inside Out is illustrating, with a precision that would be impressive even in an analytical psychology course, is one of the most fundamental principles of mental health, the Jungian concept of the integration of opposites. Carl Jung spent decades studying what he called the tension of opposites, the idea that the healthy human psyche is not characterized by the dominance of positive qualities over negative ones, but by the ability to hold seemingly contradictory polarities in dynamic balance. In practice, this means that a psychologically mature person isn't someone who's always happy, always confident, always motivated. It's someone who can be simultaneously hopeful and realistic about challenges, who can feel gratitude and still recognize what needs to be changed, who can celebrate achievements and process disappointments without denying or exaggerating any of these experiences. But here's the insight most people miss, one that represents years of therapy condensed into a 90-minute animation. Sadness is not joy's opposite. It is its complementary partner in a complex psychological system. I'll explain exactly why this is revolutionary. Sadness has at least 5 crucial psychological functions that joy, no matter how well-intentioned, can never perform alone. First, loss signaling. Grief tells us when something important has been lost and needs to be processed. Not just objects or people, but also identities, expectations, and versions of ourselves that no longer exist. Without this signaling, we accumulate unprocessed losses that eventually manifest as depression, anxiety, or seemingly disproportionate emotional outbursts. Second, slowdown for processing. Sadness literally slows down our mental and physical rhythm, forcing us to stop and process complex experiences. Joy wants to move forward, find solutions, keep moving. But some experiences can't be solved. They need to be felt, integrated, and understood on a deeper level. Third, connection through vulnerability, and we share our sadness authentically. We spark genuine empathy in others. This creates emotional bonds deeper than any amount of shared joy. People connect through hurts, not triumphs. Development of compassion. We can only truly have compassion for the struggles of others when we recognize our own. Constant joy creates a kind of emotional blindness to the suffering of others. Fifth, access to deep creativity. Humanity's greatest works of art, literature, and music emerged from the tension between joy and melancholy. The ability to feel deeply both pleasure and pain is what fuels authentic creativity. Without sadness functioning properly, Riley cannot form authentic connections, cannot process meaningful change, cannot develop real emotional resilience, and cannot access deeper levels of creativity and self-awareness. Joy, however well-intentioned, is functioning as a benevolent emotional dictator. She sincerely believes she's protecting Riley, but in reality, she's engaging in a sophisticated form of emotional avoidance that completely impedes psychological growth. Think about your own life for a moment. When did you grow most as a person? When did you develop more self-awareness, more compassion, more wisdom about navigating complex relationships? Was it the moments of pure joy, when everything was going exactly as you planned? Or was it the periods when you had to face loss, disappointment, and chosen changes, and somehow find a way to integrate these difficult experiences into your understanding of who you are and how the world works? The honest answer, for most of us, is that real growth happened during difficult times. And that's exactly what Inside Out is trying to teach us. We arrive at the moment that I consider not only the film's climax, but one of the most accurate depictions of the therapeutic process ever put on a movie screen. The scene in the memory dump, where Bing Bong is literally disappearing, is a masterclass in applied psychology disguised as a moment of family entertainment. Bing Bong, for those who didn't grasp the symbolism, isn't just Riley's cute imaginary friend. He represents the capacity for fantasy, creativity, and magical thinking of childhood. He's disappearing because Riley is growing up, and a fundamental part of who she was is being left behind. He's not just sad, he's mourning the end of an era in Riley's life. Watch carefully Joy's instinctive reaction when she finds Bing Bong crying. She immediately activates what I call the emotional rescue protocol. Hey, don't be sad. Look, let's play. Remember when you used to do that funny dance? Come on, it'll be fun. Think of all the good things you've done together. This isn't just a cartoon character's reaction. This is exactly how our culture teaches us to respond to suffering our own and others. Distract, redirect, find the positive. Remember the good. Don't dwell on sadness because it doesn't help anyone. And notice the result. Bing Bong becomes more agitated, more desperate. He begins to behave more erratically, more childishly. Why? Because when we deny or quickly try to fix someone's pain, we send a clear message. Your current emotional experience is unacceptable and needs to be changed immediately. This doesn't offer comfort. It offers more isolation. Then sadness does something that goes against everything our culture teaches us about how to help people in pain. She doesn't offer solutions. She doesn't try to change Bing Bong's perspective. She doesn't minimize his pain or offer comforting platitudes. She simply sits next to him. And he says, "It's really sad. I'm sorry you're going through this. It must be really hard." This is pure emotional validation. She's not trying to fix Bing Bong, she's acknowledging that his experience is real, legitimate, and understandable. She's offering presence rather than solutions. And immediately Bing Bong calms down. His breathing slows. He stops struggling. He feels seen, understood, less alone in his experience. This is the moment Joy has her first real epiphany about the limits of positivity. She realizes that there are situations where her approach isn't just futile, it's counterproductive. There are times when trying to cheer up someone actually increases their suffering. Now, I want you to do an exercise with me. Pause the video and think about the last time someone close to you was going through a difficult time. It could have been a breakup, a job loss, family problems, health issues, anything. What was your first reaction? Did you offer solutions? Did you try to show the positive side of the situation? Did you say things like, "It'll be okay. At least it's not worse. God knows what he's doing. Everything happens for a reason"? Now imagine an alternate scenario. Imagine that, instead of trying to fix or reframe this person's situation, you had done exactly what sadness did. Imagine you had sat next to her and said something like, "Wow, this must be really hard for you. I can only imagine how you must be feeling. I want you to know that I'm here for you right now. Do you feel the difference?" The first approach attempts to change the person's emotional experience. The second validates and supports that experience. The first creates distance because it sends the message that the person's feelings are problematic. The second creates intimacy because it communicates that the person is accepted exactly as they are at that moment. And here's the paradox that most people never understand. When we stop trying to pull someone out of their sadness and simply join them where they are, we create the safe space necessary for them to naturally process their feelings and eventually move toward healing. Attempts to cheer up people create resistance and isolation. Compassionate presence creates connection and healing. This is why people who have never learned to integrate their own sadness often feel profoundly alone, even when surrounded by well-meaning people who constantly try to cheer up them. Let's take a closer look at what happens to Riley after she stops running from her sadness and allows all her emotions to work together. Because this transformation isn't just narratively satisfying, it's psychologically accurate. Riley doesn't return to being the perpetually happy child from the beginning of the film. something much more sophisticated and powerful happens. She develops what psychologists call emotional complexity, the ability to experience and integrate multiple emotions simultaneously without being overwhelmed by any one of them. Notice the new core memories that form at the end. They are no longer golden and simple. They are multicolored, layered, rich in emotional nuances. A single memory can be simultaneously blue and golden, sad and joyful, nostalgic and hopeful, melancholic and grateful. This isn't emotional confusion. It's emotional sophistication. There's a technical term for this: bittersweet capacity, the psychological ability to hold seemingly contradictory emotions simultaneously without needing to resolve the tension between them. It's considered one of the most reliable markers of emotional maturity and long-term psychological well-being. People with a high bittersweet capacity can feel gratitude for the difficult experiences that strengthen them without minimizing how painful those experiences were at the time. They can be excited about new opportunities without denying the longing they feel for what's behind them. They can love someone deeply without ignoring that person's imperfections. Remember that Riley from the beginning, with her perfectly golden memories and one-dimensionally positive personality, she was, in fact, psychologically fragile. Any situation that couldn't be immediately recontextualized as fun or adventure left her completely lost. Lacking the inner resources to navigate complexity. She was like a person who only learned to drive on straight, smooth roads, trying to navigate a city with mountains, sharp curves, and heavy traffic. It worked perfectly until it stopped working completely. Now Riley may miss Minnesota and be genuinely excited about the possibilities in San Francisco. She may feel fear of the unknown and curiosity for new experiences. She may feel anger that her parents made the decision to move without consulting her and understanding that they did the best they could with the information they had. She can cry in her parents' arms, not because she is broken or because she can't cope, but because she finally has access to her full emotional experience. This emotional integration brings concrete and measurable psychological benefits: enhanced resilience. When you don't have to constantly expend mental energy suppressing undesirable emotions, you have far more resources available to deal with real challenges. Resilience doesn't come from the ability to unaffect yourself. It comes from the ability to be completely affected and still bounce back. Authentic empathy. You can only offer true compassion for the suffering of others when you acknowledge and integrate your own suffering. People who deny their own pain tend to minimize or quickly try to fix the pain of others, which creates distance rather than connection. Deeper relationships. When you stop presenting only the edited version of yourself to the world, you create space for a real intimacy. Relationships built solely on shared joy are fragile. Relationships that can navigate sadness, frustration, and disappointment together are lasting. Expanded creativity. Authentic creativity emerges from the tension between opposites. Artists, writers, musicians, and innovators in any field often describe their best work as born of a complex mix of joy and melancholy, hope and disillusionment, love and loss, increased self-knowledge. You can't truly know yourself if you're constantly rejecting parts of your experience. Self-knowledge comes from honestly observing the full range of your emotional reactions, not just the ones you consider acceptable. Authenticity. Perhaps most importantly, you stop living as if you were an actor playing the version of yourself you think others want to see, and start living as who you really are: complex, multifaceted, sometimes contradictory, and genuinely human. And here's the most beautiful paradox of all. Riley didn't become a happier person in the superficial sense our culture sells. She became a more complete person, and this completeness, this ability to embrace the full human experience, is infinitely more valuable and sustainable than any forced or manufactured joy. Because true happiness isn't the absence of other emotions. It's the presence of meaning, purpose, and authentic connection. And this is only possible when we stop fighting fundamental aspects of who we are. So, after all this, what is the real psychological message of Inside Out? It's not that we should seek out sadness. It's not that joy is superficial or problematic. It's not that we should become melancholic people who romanticize suffering. The message is much deeper and more revolutionary than that. True happiness, sustainable, deep, and resilient happiness is not the absence of sadness, fear, anger, or any other negative emotion. It is the ability to hold all of these experiences in your heart at once, without being overwhelmed by any of them, and without needing to deny any of them to keep your identity intact. This means that, starting today, when you feel sadness, anxiety, frustration, fear, or any emotion our culture labels as problematic, you have a different choice. Instead of immediately trying to get rid of these feelings through distraction, forced positivity, or self-medicating with work, shopping, food, or entertainment, you can do what Riley finally learned to do. You can pause, breathe, and ask, what is this emotion trying to tell me? What important information is it carrying? What does it need from me right now? When you feel sad, instead of trying to think positive, you can acknowledge, something important to me has been lost or is changing, and I need time to process this. When you feel anxious, instead of trying to relax, you can acknowledge, my system is alerting me to something it perceives as a threat, and I need to understand what it is. When you feel angry, instead of trying to calm down, you can acknowledge, some boundary of mine has been crossed, some important value has been violated, and I need to figure out how to respond constructively. And here's the part that will completely change how you relate to the people around you. When someone close to you is suffering, you can choose to be sadness instead of well-intentioned but counterproductive joy, instead of saying, it'll be okay, or at least you have, or everything happens for a reason. You can say, that sounds really hard. How are you dealing with all of this? Instead of trying to distract them or cheer them up, you can simply be present with them where they are. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to implement this radical shift in perspective within the next 48 hours. When you feel a difficult emotion, stop trying to fix it immediately. When someone shares a difficulty with you, stop trying to solve it immediately. Try the sadness approach, presence, validation, and accompaniment. See what happens when you stop fighting the complexity of the human experience and start working with it. And here's a personal confession. Implementing this in my own life was one of the hardest and most transformative things I've ever done, because it means letting go of the illusion of control that constant positivity offers. It means accepting that you are a whole human being, not a joy machine with occasional flaws. It means stopping apologizing for feeling things deeply and starting to recognize this capacity for what it really is. An emotional superpower that most people spend their entire lives trying to suppress. Riley learned to integrate her inner world. She discovered how to be a whole person instead of a just happy person. But what about the adults around her? What about you? What about the society that created this unhealthy obsession with constant positivity? Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. A culture that demonizes sadness isn't trying to create happier people. It's trying to create more docile consumers, more submissive employees, and less questioning citizens. If this video touched something deep inside you, I want to know. Leave a comment. When was the first time in your life that you learned that it wasn't safe to feel sad? Who taught you that you needed to be strong, positive, and optimistic all the time? And how has this affected your relationships, your choices, and your ability to be genuinely yourself? Let's build a community here where all emotions are welcome, where you don't have to apologize for being human. And remember this fundamental truth. You don't have to be happy all the time to be a complete, valuable, and lovable person. In fact, your ability to feel deeply the full range of human emotions is not a flaw that needs to be fixed. It's exactly what makes you real. The next time someone says think positive, you might smile and reply, actually, I prefer to think positive, because whole people create whole relationships, whole lives, and a more compassionate world for everyone.